Again, with breaking news in Russia, state media reporting tonight that Mikhail Gorbachev is dead at 91 years old. Gorbachev was the Soviet Union's final leader, resigning in 1991, ultimately won a Nobel Peace Prize for his role ending the Cold War. NewsNation correspondent Kelly Meyer is live. And Kelly, Gorbachev certainly leaves a striking legacy behind.
Yeah, that's right, Nicole. And Gorbachev is the last Soviet leader. He became the general secretary at just age 54. Now at age 91, as you said, he leaves behind this legacy that comes with a mixed response from Russia. He was known for ending the Cold War without bloodshed, but failing to prevent the collapse of the Soviet Union. From 1985 to 1991, former Russian President Mikhail Gorbachev forged deals with the U.S. and other Western powers to remove the Iron Curtain that had divided Europe since World War II and brought about the reunification of Germany. He was in power less than 7 years, but enacted changes that resulted in the freeing of Eastern European nations from Russian dominance and ended decades of East-West nuclear confrontation. In 1986, face-to-face meeting with American President Ronald Reagan at a summit in Reykjavik, Iceland, Gorbachev proposed eliminating all long-range missiles held by the United States and the Soviet Union. It was the beginning of the end of the Cold War. But the demonstrations fueled aspirations for autonomy in the 15 republics of the Soviet Union, which disintegrated over the next 2 years in chaotic fashion. In 1990, Gorbachev won the Nobel Peace Prize for his role in ending the Cold War and spent his later years collecting accolades and awards from all corners of the world. Yet he was widely despised at home. Russians blamed him for the 1991 implosion of the Soviet Union, a once feared superpower whose territory fractured into 15 separate nations. His former allies deserted him and made him a scapegoat for the country's troubles. Reports from Central Clinical Hospital say Mikhail Gorbachev died following a lengthy illness. He was 91 years old. And Nicole, the official Russian news agency TASS is reporting that Gorbachev will be buried in a Moscow cemetery next to his wife. Nicole.
All right, Kelly Meyer live for us in Washington. Thank you. And we do want to keep this conversation going with Brian Whitmore tonight. He's a former foreign correspondent in Moscow. Brian, we appreciate you being with us. Talk about what the Soviet Union was like when Gorbachev first took office, midway through his time in power, and then by the time he left office. How did daily life change there for Russians?
When Gorbachev took power, the Soviet economy was completely stagnating, and Gorbachev understood that the status quo could not continue. And he began with very modest reforms, but over time, he himself has said that became very obvious to him that more radical measures were needed. And he began to introduce more radical market mechanisms into the economy, and he even began to introduce democratic reforms, leading to the election, the first election of a partially democratically elected parliament in the Soviet Union. But in doing so, Gorbachev unleashed forces he could no longer control. On one hand, you had radical Democrats who wanted the entire Soviet system dismantled, and then you had communist hardliners who wanted to go back to how it was. Gorbachev was trying to steer a middle path where nobody else really was. His reforms also set off desire for independence in the non-Russian republics of the former Soviet Union, and he learned the lesson that democracy and empire don't really mix. Over his time in power, and he was only in power for 6 years, the Soviet economy imploded. The command economy broke down. There wasn't a market economy in place to replace it. So you had severe economic hardship by the time Gorbachev left power, Nicole.
So, Brian, you mentioned the fact that he was only in power for 6 years, so much changed in a relatively short amount of time. We know that he won a Nobel Peace Prize for his role in ending the Cold War there. How do you think his role will be remembered in that?
Well, it depends who you ask. In the West, he's obviously lionized. I mean, for me, Gorbachev is a symbol of a more hopeful time, a more optimistic time. When I try to explain this to my students, the optimism we felt in the late 1980s and early 1990s as the Cold War was ending, there was this feeling that everything and anything was possible. But if you ask your average Russian, they blame him for the hardships the country went through and the breakup of the Soviet Empire. So the very things we praise him for, his own people criticized him for.
Well,
But
I want to dig into that a little bit more because at the top of this, we mentioned, you were a former foreign correspondent. So as you lived there in Moscow, you were there, you were among the people. What were people's general feelings toward him?
They were increasingly angry toward him. They were increasingly critical of him. And this happened at a time when they could be critical of him, thanks to him, because he brought in the policies of glasnost and perestroika that gave them the ability to criticize him. But over time they became increasingly critical. But I will say, Nichole, I was in Russia after the breakup of the Soviet Union, and I met Mr. Gorbachev in 1986 when he was making a very unlikely run for president. He didn't get very far, but I met him on the campaign trail and talked to him. He was giving a talk in St. Petersburg. Found him to be a very, very nice, personable, engaging man. A very kind man. He's very similar to his public persona. And I saw an old man walking away with his grandson from this event, and his grandson said, "Who's that, Grandpa?" And his grandfather said, "That's a great man." Wow. So there were still people who admired him. I will say Vladimir Putin was not one of those people. Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways, Vladimir Putin is trying to be the anti-Gorbachev. He saw that Gorbachev's reforms caused the system to break up, and he is determined to be the opposite of Gorbachev.
All right, so you say Putin, maybe trying to be the anti-Gorbachev there. Obviously, Russia invaded Ukraine 6 months ago. Do we know, did Gorbachev ever speak on that? Did he have any continued influence on the people there in Russia?
He had very little influence on the people there in Russia. I do recall an incident back, if I'm not mistaken, it was in 2016 when Gorbachev was celebrating his birthday, and he sang a song in Ukrainian. And this was interpreted as kind of a show of his displeasure with what was going on in Ukraine. Remember, Russia first invaded Ukraine back in 2014 before the full-scale invasion, which was launched in February of this year. But all reports indicate that Gorbachev was unhappy with the direction of the country and unhappy with the invasion of Ukraine.
All right, former foreign correspondent in Moscow, Brian Whitmore, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.